welcome. The world is changing, but there's still that moment when we're sometimes caught off guard, when we're actually pleasantly surprised to see a woman heading or managing a massive warehouse, or a woman heading sales for an alcohol company. Luckily, we are seeing and hearing of more women achievers in corporate roles, in the boardroom, in multinationals. But there are still some career paths that are still considered male-dominated. And today, we're honored and happy to welcome on the show a woman who's breaking stereotypes, who has carved out success in an unconventional field, Stephanie Mcleod, a global master blender at Doers. Welcome to NDTV, Stephanie, and you're watching Women in Leadership. Welcome to NDTV, Stephanie.
Thank you, Sarah.
Well, Stephanie, you know, we know from your accent that you're from Scotland.
Yes.
So how does a young girl from Scotland become a master blender? Because, you know, let me just say it. If you think of this industry, you imagine an old white, you know, tweed-clad, all white male. This is a male-dominated industry. At least that's how it seems. So how did you get here?
Well, it was being in the right place at the right time with the right skills is really how it happened. So I graduated from university with a food science degree. At that point, I really didn't drink much alcohol. I didn't.
You do now.
And I thought, this is a life's work, because you know there's the casks, there's the spirit itself, and you know the magic that happens inside the maturation cask. So I then applied for a role at Doers. And eventually I was asked if I wanted to train up to be the master blender when the current master blender retired.
And it took you how many seconds to say yes?
Yeah, it was a nanosecond. So, I mean, it was such an honour, but I did find it quite daunting, because Doers is a huge brand, and, you know, here was me, you know, suddenly thrust into this huge role. But I had a lot of support behind me. I had a lot of people in my corner wanting me to do well. So I was very lucky. And although, you know, there weren't many women in the room when I was starting, the men that were there were mostly very supportive and encouraged me to join things, to speak to people, to network. So that was very helpful, and it was very welcome.
So many questions here. I mean, you got me so curious. First and foremost, so there's no course. There's not like you can go to grad school and study this.
No, there isn't. I mean, people ask me that actually. You know, so what course did you do to
because you
do
said
this?
I got the skills for it. So, and when you joined, when they asked you, you were the only woman master blender. Yeah. And now you're only one of 7 master blenders in the entire company. Is that correct?
Yes, Bacardi has master blenders for all of the brands. So I am the 7th master blender for Doers. So Doers is nearly 176 years old. So it started off in 1846 in Perth in Scotland. So, you know, we want to be here for another 175 years, not just for next year's sales, but for 50 years' time.
So you touched upon this a little bit. What is it? What are the factors that enabled your growth at Bacardi? Right? Is there something about the company, the environment, the company policies that allowed a woman to make it all the way to the top? Is there a philosophy? Did you have mentors?
Well, you know, at Bacardi, they truly believe in being fearless, in being part of a family, and having a founder's mentality. And so really, if you have a desire to do something, then they will encourage it. You know, if it's training that you need, if it's an experience of another area of the business, then they will provide that. And so in my team, I am trying to reflect that. So it's mostly women that are in my team.
Oh, wow.
I've got Anija, who is from Bacardi, India. She transferred last August, left her mum and dad behind, all of her friends, because she had this dream to work with Scotch whisky. So she joined us last August, and she's really fantastic. And I've got a girl from Estonia, a girl from Canada, and Scottish girls as well, and one male.
This is the reverse of what we see in other industries.
Yeah.
So how did this happen? How has the perception of women in this industry changed? I mean, clearly you're a catalyst in this, and you're trying to
Yes.
do that in your immediate environment. So
Yeah.
how does it work? Do you actively look for women, or have they gravitated towards you? Because
I try not to, positively discriminate.
Obviously.
So they all have to be the best for the role. But, if there are no women on the list, then, that's a problem. And it's not just about women, it's, ethnic backgrounds as well. There's all, diversity isn't just about male and female, for us. And so we also have a graduate program at Bacardi.
now,
And this was a few years ago that we started this, and most of the candidates were women, and most of the graduates that we brought on were women as well.
Fascinating.
So it was just the best candidates for the roles, and it's amazing to see the graduates growing. And you sometimes take the whiskey industry for granted, because you're used to it and you're used to how fantastic it is. But then when you see it through new eyes, and they are so passionate and so enthusiastic, you just think, yes, I am lucky to be doing what I'm doing.
I think these women are lucky that we walk on the shoulders of the women before us. But
Yeah.
let me ask, when you entered this industry, I mean, and please be candid over here, I mean, were there any challenges that you faced as a woman, even though everyone was supportive?
Yeah, I mean, I doubted myself absolutely and completely. And, sometimes, I still do. And I don't think that ever leaves you. You have feelings of, should I be here? The imposter syndrome that we all have.
Yes.
And then eventually you do realise, yes, of course I should be here. And it's about, challenging yourself. So when you go into a room, possibly of all men, and you don't know anyone, you really have to say, right, I'm just going to go up, I'm going to shake someone's hand, hopefully it'll work out, but I'm not going to die if it doesn't. So it's just about, really taking yourself out of what you feel comfortable with. And I think that's the only way that you can grow. And if I go out running with my husband, he says, you don't get fit by stopping when you're tired. And, it's a bit like that with work as well. You've just got to keep
at it.
pushing yourself.
Put yourself out there, and then things will change.
Yeah, exactly. But absolutely, I was racked with doubt. And, everybody was very supportive. We all worked together because we've got a small industry, but with huge global brands. So we rely on each other for best practice, and even if one distillery runs out of a spare part, another company will provide if they can. So there was lots of people to draw on for support and advice when I needed it. So I had a positive experience. But
I was going to ask you that. So now there are more women blenders, master
Yes,
blenders.
yes.
And are you all a close-knit community too, or are you competitive? I mean,
No, we actually, a journalist got all of us together actually, and we were just sort of talking about, our journeys, where we come from, where we are
How lovely.
at the moment, and it was a really good session.
so let me make the cardinal sin, because we don't ask the men this question enough. Let's talk about work-life balance. So how do you, I know you have a daughter, and you're
Yes.
here in India, and trying to rush and get that flight back home. How do you, what is your take on work-life balance, and how do you manage it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone has the magic key, and I think if they did, we would all want it. I mean, I think everybody has a different life, and I try to limit, long travel as much as I possibly can. But, things like WhatsApp, sort of having family chats, phoning when I can, every day. I mean, that's the thing, your heart tells you that, you don't want to leave them, but your head says they're safe, they're well fed, they're at school all day, they're really not, minding this. I will be home with them soon. But it's hard to switch on your brain when your heart is telling you something else.
And they get to watch their mum on TV and be inspired, and all other girls, young girls, get to be inspired.
And that's what I want. I want them to see that, women earn their own money, go out, start first thing in the morning, work hard, contribute to society. And I think that's really important to tell your child that and to show your child that.
And that's why we have you on this show, because that's the message we want to put out. But let me ask you, now that you've touched upon WhatsApp and technology, right? Traditionally, the role of a master blender would have been, I'm guessing, one of those old specialist whiskey makers, hidden away from the public, I'm guessing working in a lab, I'm not too sure, trying to make sure that every bottle or the contents of every bottle, of every glass, taste, smell, etc. are, the same.
Correct.
How does this work?
The master blender was someone who was in a tasting room, in a lab, and that is still the same. So, when I go back to work next week, there will be a row of glasses and I'll be assessing them all. The casks will arrive in, myself or someone from the team will go up and nose the casks. So that still happens. But now what's different is that everybody wants to know about it. They want to know how whiskey is made. Years gone by, people weren't really that interested, but now people are really interested in what's behind the brand. How is it made? Who are the people that make it? And so, it is exciting it was daunting, when someone told me that I would have to speak to a camera. And I remember looking at the camera and freezing and just not knowing what to say.
I don't believe that, because you're honestly, natural.
Honestly. But that is how it is now. And, the Amazon live tasting, it was a live stream.
Wow.
And that was terrifying. But I think that maybe cured me a little bit of stage fright, because it was so scary and I didn't die. So
like you said, you have to put yourself out there.
Exactly. So yes, so it has completely changed. And also during the pandemic, I couldn't go and visit markets. So everything was done online. So we did all these virtual tastings. So sometimes it would be 6 in the morning if it was Japan, or it would be 11 o'clock at night if it was the US. And it was great. It really was. I had to sort of tell everybody in the house to shh, Mummy's on the thing, don't. But, it was just lovely actually talking directly to our whiskey drinkers.
Yeah.
So it was a really kind of intimate, although it's strange to say that because it was virtual and we were thousands of miles away, but there was an intimacy to it. And I actually got a letter from somebody telling me how much they enjoyed taking part in the sessions and how it helped them get through some tough times.
Amazing, the role of technology. So the pandemic, in a sense, forced you to leapfrog into something that would have eventually happened, but it just happened sooner.
We kind of dabbled in it before, but there was always a sense that you really have to be there in person. It's not the same if it's virtual. But
so now what happens? Are you guys going to go back? I guess this is the question that's asked in many industries, right? Now that you've tasted work from home and your daughter has gotten a little glimpse of what it's like to have mom in the other room. And now that you're in a position where I'm guessing you can take these decisions because you're in senior management position. What happens now?
During the pandemic, I was on site most days. But, for things like market visits, there was just no travel. So I couldn't. And so it was the virtual tastings that took over. But I thought I think there's going to be blended. So I think there still will be...
Pardon the pun.
Yes, very good. I think there still will be virtual sessions. But there sometimes is no substitute for actually
So
immersing
what
yourself in the
does
market.
your regular, I mean, I think people are still unclear about what a master blender does, right? So
Yeah.
let's get some rapid fire questions, and we have about 6 minutes left. What
Yeah.
does your regular day look like?
So my regular day is a lot of meetings, talking about projects, so all the new innovations that we've got coming up, assessing casks, discussing our inventory. So we've got an enormous inventory that spans from the 1960s to now, and deciding what to do with that, the best possible use of it, talking with our brand teams, often talking with journalists.
That must be fun.
Yes, always. and just, making plans for the future. So we've got to lay down enough stock and buy in enough casks in order to ensure that all the new make spirit that we are bringing in has casks to go to and has enough warehouses to be housed.
How do you do this all day? What does this mean for the foods that you eat? I mean, you're in
Yes.
India, like how
Yes.
are there foods that are off limits?
Yeah, so I don't wear perfume at work.
Ah,
So I try and keep very neutral from a scent point of view, and I don't really like it when other people wear perfume that come into the blending room. But it's basically, we use tulip-shaped nosing glasses, so they're wide at the bottom and tapered at
Narrowed,
the
yeah.
top, and then we put a watch glass on top. And if there's any of the samples that don't nose in the right way, that are out of spec, then I'll send the sample to our laboratory and they will run it through just to see if there's anything there that shouldn't be there. And
so having a cold in your industry is
it's not a good.
it's worse
not
than
good.
being in a pandemic and having reporting a
Yeah,
cold at work.
But luckily I have a team round me. So if I have a cold, then there's somebody else that can take
Stands
over.
in. So what do you look for when you are trying to get someone on this team? If our viewers are interested in, what are they looking for? What are you looking for?
So I'm looking for a really good sense of smell. So somebody that can discern between and also describe what the differences are. And that is often the hardest part. And so you've got to try and build up a sensory memory. So I go around markets sniffing things, sniffing
Wow.
fruit, just so that I can say, right, that's strawberry, lock that in, that's a certain
Fascinating.
type of spice. So that's what I'm looking for. And also someone with a real attention to detail, and someone who is, wants to serve our markets and ensure that they have everything that they need, and someone who's going to listen and interpret what they're hearing so that we can ensure that we've got exactly the right spirit for the right market. And, being in India, the team were telling me that, there's just so much richness in texture and flavour in Indian cuisine that, it's just so exciting about what we're going to get out when we pair them together. It's just going to be endless combinations that we can work with.
Talking about nosing is, they say sometimes that, women have a better sense of smell than men. Is that true at all? Is there any truth to that?
In my opinion, no. I think as human beings, we all have different abilities. And some people are better at nosing. They have more sensitive palates than others. But I definitely wouldn't say that, men are better than women when it comes to nosing, because that's kind of what we've been doing in the past. Men can only do this job because they are better at it, and we know that that's not true. Everybody as human beings have different abilities, different gifts that they can bring. So I've got male colleagues who are fantastic nosers, and the same with women as well.
But if that's a requirement for the job, how does one know if one has a propensity or a skill in that department?
We do,
and can you train yourself to be better at it?
You can. I mean, for every candidate that we bring in, we put them through a sensory test. So they're given a series of blind samples, so they don't know what they are, and they have to tell me, what they think they are and what are the differences between them, so to actually describe it. And so that is a really important part of the role. And it's equal, the amount of men that are good at it and the amount of women that are good at it. So it's not a male-female split.
You describe it wonderfully. So lastly, I'm just going to ask you any message to young women? Maybe we have an Indian audience who are interested in both trying going into a career that is not a conventional one, and also specifically in this industry. Last word to you.
My aim is to encourage as many women as I possibly can. There are so many roles for women. There's engineers, there's scientists, there's master blenders, there's accountants, there's lawyers, there's scientists. So there's a whole myriad of careers, really meaningful careers that you can have. And at Bacardi, people are maybe working in India, the next month they're working in Scotland. So really anything is possible. If you want to travel the world, then the industry is a place to be in. And please don't see it as being male dominated, because it's changing, it has changed, and it's going to change even more in the future.
Cheers to that. Thank you, Stephanie, so much. You've captured everyone's heart with your story, and I think I can safely say that it gives courage. I think it gives courage to those who are dreaming of similar careers, of walking off the beaten path, basically of anyone hoping to follow their dreams. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.